A new economic outlook by the Conference Board of Canada joins others that predict the likeliness of a recession in 2023. It says a recession is possible, but the underlying conditions are working in the economy's favor. The think tank says it expects there will be essentially zero economic growth from the second half of this year through to the first quarter of 2023. It says whether that meets a technical definition of a recession will depend on some ultra fine-tuned estimates, which will not be entirely visible in the annual numbers. Scotiabank Economics chief economist and senior vice president also predicts the Canadian economy will enter a technical recession in the first half of 2023. Well, joining us now to give us his outlook on this is Dr. Moshe Lander, an economics professor at Concordia University with expertise in recessions. Dr. Lander, welcome back to Forum Daily.
Hello.
So, what are you taking away from this latest economic data, Dr. Lander, and what is your overall outlook?
Well, I mean, the fact is that the economy is slowing down. And so we had this nice little blip in the early part of the year when the COVID restrictions were being lifted across the country, and everybody wanted to get out and enjoy themselves. And, higher interest rates, high inflation, and maybe a little bit of fatigue from all of that early partying is, in fact, dragging the economy down. And as you said in your lead there, are we at a technical point of a recession or not? We're going to see that data in the next couple of weeks, and that'll give us a much better indication as to whether it's just mildly positive or mildly negative growth that we're seeing.
Now, if we were to enter a technical or mild recession in 2023, what would that look like for Canada, according to the information that we have so far?
That's the amazing thing, Nima, is that the way that it looks is really very micro oriented. It's not a macro sort of thing that happens, right? If you have a job, if your friends have a job, if your family have jobs, then I could tell you we're in the most severe recession, and you'd look around and say, really, I don't see it. And if you're out of work and your friends are out of work and your family's out of work, and I say the economy's doing well, you'd say, I don't see it. And so that's one of those things that, where these banks and the conference board are talking about technical definition, not technical definition. The issue really does come down to how do you personally experience it? And I'd say that if you have a job and if you can put food on the table and you can pay your bills, then recession schmession, you're probably fine. And I think that's the way that a lot of us are going to experience the recession if it happens.
And are there any industries or particular jobs that will likely be most impacted by a technical or mild recession in the coming year?
The financial sector is the one that's probably been overheating the most, right? We've been talking a lot in the last couple of months about the housing market being dragged down. Anything that's interest rate sensitive, so that could be the construction industry, would also probably suffer under the weight of these high inflation rates. Consumer spending is probably going to decline, and so where are you spending your money? Retail is probably going to suffer. Food and beverage industry, I hate to say it, could suffer, and the tourism industry could suffer because the recession is probably not going to be isolated to Canada alone. And where we're hearing about other countries that are experiencing economic hard times, they might not be showing up in Canada to spend their limited disposable income dollars because they just don't have it to spend.
And in terms of some positive news, Dr. Lander, we mentioned the Conference Board of Canada saying that the underlying conditions are working in the economy's favor. So, in what ways is that true?
I think if we're heading for a recession, we're heading into it in good shape, right? We've been talking about labor shortages, right? That everybody's desperate for workers, and so the fact is that there's a lot of good news within the economy. Unemployment is near record lows. Inflation is on its way down. It's not down to where it should be, but it's moving in the right direction. And the fact is that we came out of this COVID experience relatively better placed than a lot of other countries. The government debt, while it jumped a lot because of all of that spending, fact is that it's at a manageable level still. And so there's probably room that if we do enter a recession, there should be areas where governments can offer some spending support without it breaking the bank for them.
All right, Dr. Lander, in terms of the long term, when can Canadians expect some relief from these interest rate hikes and inflation overall?
So, inflation is now at, say, a 15-year high. But, to say it's a 15-year high, it's because for the 15 years leading up to that, it was at a very low level, and we're not that far above it. So, we're going to see interest rates go up a little bit. We're going to see that inflation takes about 12 to 18 months before it comes back down to something resembling normal. But the things are moving in the right directions at least. And so, I think it's merely a matter of how do you view that road to normality? Is that a good experience? Is it a bumpy experience? But at least it's heading in the right direction. And so that's the way that I would say that if you can try and approach this in an optimistic sort of way, it actually does good things for the economy because psychology is going to matter here. And if we see doom and gloom, that's the type of thing that massively chokes back spending and makes a shallow recession much worse. People stay optimistic that good times are just around the corner. It's the type of thing that really can actually be a self fulfilling prophecy.
All right, Dr. Lander, thank you again for joining us today on Forum Daily.
Anytime.